And at 10, Painkiller Jane. First appearing in 22 Brides number 1, Painkiller Jane is an event comics character created for a 5-issue miniseries, but then went on to crossover with characters like the Punisher and Hellboy. Jane Vasco started out as an undercover cop trying to infiltrate the mob. After gaining the trust of the mob boss, she is sent to meet a rival gang member to pass on a message, but unbeknownst to her, they planted a bomb on her, blowing it up as soon as she meets the member. He somehow survives and is able to revive her, while also giving her the superhuman ability to regenerate in the process. She then decides to leave her life as a cop behind, becoming the vigilante Painkiller Jane. While this may be the origin listed on most websites, a different origin was presented in the first Painkiller Jane miniseries, and the Dynamite Comics miniseries contains references to both versions. Her powers make her indestructible, being able to heal wounds in less than a minute. She has recovered from gunshots, explosions, chemical weapons, axes to the spine, and even a shotgun to the face, and if that's not the description of immortality, I don't know what is. And at 9, Batman. Batman isn't really immortal. He's a regular guy who has insane martial arts skills, and he's the world's greatest detective. But he's been around since 1939. That's 80 years. And while it may be a long time for the Bat, he's still looking good for his age, even though he should be looking like Bruce Wayne from the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. First appearing in Detective Comics number 27, Batman may not be your typical version of immortal, but it's 100% sure that under no circumstance will Batman ever be killed off. Permanently, I should say. Unless it's an alternate version of him and not the main one that is bringing in the major bucks. Major bucks? The only way they would kill off Batman is if they needed the publicity or if everyone stopped reading, but nobody's gonna stop reading Batman. He's immortal because he brings in a huge amount of money. He's got like that protagonist armor, like the solid armor at that. And it ain't Deadpool. Deadpool is one hell of a disease, and I mean that as in you'll never truly be rid of him. He's like an STI. Sure, your symptoms may go down and you won't be able to spread it, but it will flare up again every once in a while. First appearing in the New Mutants number 98, Wade Winston Wilson is meant to be a parody of Slade Wilson, and they do this in the best way. The wisecracking, death-loving merc with a mouth is able to, like Painkiller Jane, restore any wound within a matter of seconds, or longer if it's a whole appendage like a hand. This ability also depends on his mental state. If he's happy, awake, and alert, it works at its best. His healing factor is strong enough that he has survived complete incineration and decapitation, and even his head was able to be its own person as Deadpool. He was able to regrow his head as well after it was pulverized by the Hulk in Deadpool Kills the Universe, a graphic novel. If you can do that, where can I sign up? I can look like an avocado had sex with an older, more disgusting avocado on a topographical map of Utah.
Number 7, Icarus. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention one Eternal on this list. Eternals are known for their immortality. I mean, it's kinda in the name. Eternal. We call them eternal because they are. They have lived on Earth for 1 million years at this point or more, Icarus included. They are beings who were created by the Celestials, but whose purpose remained a great mystery in the comics for a long time. Initially though, it seemed that the Celestials had created them to kind of be Earth's heroes, but also because they kind of enjoyed messing with species on other worlds, which was exactly what they were doing with humanity when they created both the Eternals and their initial sworn enemies, the Deviants. Icarus, like himself, is often thought of as being the Superman equivalent of the group. Icarus is well known for his durability, strength, flight, and energy manipulation and energy beams, including heat vision as a form of. Icarus is strong enough to take on Thanos one-on-one and also possesses the ability to heal himself. Like other Eternals, he also has the capability to teleport, though he actually prefers not to do that, and he possesses low-level psionic abilities that allow him to communicate telepathically, as well as more advanced telekinetic abilities.
And at 6, Ghost Rider. First appearing in Marvel Spotlight number 5, Johnny Blaze agrees to give his soul to the devil in order to save his father's life. The result of this is, at night, when he is around evil, his flesh becomes surrounded in hellfire and his head becomes a fiery skull. He rides a fiery motorcycle as well and can launch blasts of hellfire from his typically skeletal hands. There have been many incarnations of the Ghost Rider over the years: Johnny Blaze, Noble Kale, Denny Ketch, Alejandro Jones, and Robbie Reyes, to name a few. And while being able to get shot, stabbed, or whacked and not feel anything can contribute to immortality, the fact that there will never not be a Ghost Rider serves as more of a way to secure immortality. I almost included Oliver Queen on the list because of what happened during the CW Crisis crossover, but I figured I'd not include characters based on what happened on TV. I'd just do comics.
Number 5. Venom. When it comes to scary comic book characters, Venom is definitely one of the first a lot of people think of. I know he gave me nightmares as a kid, although I also had a talking toy of him, which was my favorite. Represent. Venom is freaky not only for his terrifying appearance, but also because the idea of having an alien symbiote latch onto me and control me sounds awful. However, the most terrifying thing about Venom is talking about him/it/them. Am I talking about the symbiote? The combination of them? Which version of the combination? Who's with the symbiote? Which of the dozen retcons are we referring to? And how many people will yell at me in the comments if I get it wrong? Seriously? It's a nightmare. In terms of immortality, we haven't really seen a symbiote latch onto a host for long enough to know if they're immortal that way, but the symbiotes themselves are believed to be, so I think that counts. See? Confusing.
And at 4, Superman. First seen in Action Comics #1, Superman has technically died before, but in the universe of comics, death is never really a true threat. The Death of Superman storyline began in 1992 and lasted until late 1993, where it shocked fans to think that Superman was truly dead and that there was no returning. However, this is often cited as the event that sparked the whole nobody ever really dies in comic books theme, where no matter who dies, they will bring him back within the next few issues. While also being bulletproof and super strong, he can fly, has heat vision and frost breath, and can basically do whatever he wants with no consequences. Yes, while it may be possible to kill him like they have in the past, Superman is considered the poster boy of comic books and referred to as the first superhero by many. This is technically untrue because others like Zorro predate him and fit the same bill as Superman, but whatever. You can't kill the literal face of comics, especially when we have events like Blackest Night which bring back characters who even their creators forgot about.
Number 3, Hulk. Hulk is definitely one of the most powerful heroes around in Marvel Comics. Often he is well known for his massive amount of strength and ability to smash or destroy just about anything he sets his mind to wrecking. Lately, however, we saw a deep dive into the character of the Hulk and Bruce Banner, who are also often described as being two separate beings kind of sharing one existence. In Immortal Hulk, we also learn not only that Hulk is extremely complex, but also that he's, well, you may have guessed it, immortal. Granted, this very revelation was something pulled from his original origin, where it was initially explained that at night the Hulk would basically take over, and because of this, whenever night fell, if Bruce Banner had been killed, then Hulk would be resurrected, bringing Bruce back with him. If you are a Hulk fan and you haven't yet read Immortal Hulk, by the way, it's definitely a must read, so go do that. And you'll see what I'm talking about with all this immortal stuff. If you didn't already know, because I feel like, you know, if you've been a Hulk fan for a long time, then you probably were like, I mean, it makes sense.
And at 2, Wolverine. This wannabe honey badger has slowly had his healing factor amped up over time. He used to take days to recover from a severe beating, as seen in the classic X-Men in Australia storyline in the 90s, but now you can drop an atom bomb on him and he can just get right back up. In fact, it was revealed that every time Wolverine dies, he goes to like this hellish world, where he has to fight a demon samurai for the right to return to life. Yeah, I don't get it either. Wolverine has also managed to regenerate his entire body from a single drop of blood after it landed on the Crystal of Ultimate Vision in Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, Annual number 11 in 1987. This also gave him incredible cosmic powers, which he abandoned and instead destroyed the crystal, killing Horde, who was trying to take it for himself. Why would you do that? Which is pretty cool and one of the dopest things I've seen come from comics, but again, why would you do that? Just tear him apart. God. Finally, in at number 1, Mr. Immortal. How can I not finish this list off with the guy whose name is literally immortal? First appearing in West Coast Avengers Volume 2, number 46 in 1989, Craig Hollis was visited by the entity known as Death Urge, shortly after his birth and the death of his mother. This entity started urging Craig to do dangerous things, while his father thinks it's just an imaginary friend. Eventually, as Craig calls him Dirge, convinces Craig to set his house on fire and hide beneath it. This event kills his father and Dirge leaves. He gets put in foster care with an abusive father, but grows close to his foster sister. They fall in love, but is torn away when she offs herself. This causes Dirge to come back, and Craig asks him to kill him as well so that he can be with her. Dirge refuses because he's just a dick. But this doesn't stop Craig, who tried to fulfill his wish by jumping off a building, only to realize he can't die. He uses this ability to become a superhero, and as his first outing as Mr. Immortal, he's shot and left for dead. He decided he needed a team to make better use of his abilities, so after putting an ad out on Craigslist, he founds the Great Lake Avengers. A superhero who can't die but wants to? That sounds pretty interesting to me.
Number 10, Frank. Yep. Frank. Okay, fine. You may know him better as Frankenstein's monster. You know the beginning of Frank's story, created by Victor Frankenstein, or Frankenstein if you prefer. The monster eventually found himself frozen in ice, being thawed a century later. After falling in with some rough crowds, he would eventually go on to join various monster hunting teams, including the Fearsome Four and later the all-new Howling Commandos, after being recruited by Agent Coulson. Since he's kind of already dead, he can't really die, and since his cells aren't alive, he's even immune to disease. And I mean, considering he's the star of one of the greatest horror franchises in the world, I'd say he's pretty scary. Number 9, Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler definitely isn't what most people think of when they think scary superhero. but he was on my mind since I just did an alternate versions list for him. A link down below, maybe? That said, he's definitely one of the freakiest looking heroes out there, largely because of his demonic heritage. Now look, I'm no bigot, but the dude definitely looks like a demon, which is fine in comic books, but if I ran into him in a dark alley, I would not be pleased, especially if he suddenly teleported behind me. He also ticks the Immortal box since he already died and had to sacrifice his soul to come back to life, which sounds kinda selfish, but it was actually for the greater good. Long story. Number 8, DEADMAN. Boston Brand was a circus acrobat, but after being murdered, he made a deal with Ramakrishna, a Hindu goddess, to give him powers to find his murderer. But he's a decent guy, so if he sees someone being bad while he's finding the murderer, he stops them by possessing people. This led to him working with various super teams, including Justice Society International. And I gotta say, this was a pretty easy choice, since DEADMAN is a spooky, spooky ghost, which instantly gives him both immortality cred and scary cred. Making my job easy. Another nice thing is that he looks a lot more villainous than most heroes, which also means he looks pretty darn scary. Sometimes. Other times he's a bit goofy, but we won't talk about those times. He's scary, he's immortal, he's on the list.
And it's 7 Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot. Okay, I'm not actually gonna do that the whole time. And now I've also realized that the editor can put whatever they want over me saying that. Oh no. First appearing in Tales to Astonish number 13 in 1960, Groot is essentially a tree. He is a floral colossus from planet X. These beings are tree-like humanoids whose language can only be understood by listening to the stiffness of their larynx and the breaths in between each sentence, which is one of the most creative things that we've seen done with a language. Sure, you can't speak it like Dothraki, but it's still pretty cool. Groot originally came to Earth to capture and study humans, but was destroyed by termites used by Leslie Evans. Xemnu made a duplicate of Groot by combining a human and a tree so it could fight Hulk, but that was destroyed as well. In the MCU, Groot sacrificed himself in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, saying "We are Groot" rather than "I am Groot," but then was brought back using a leftover twig, which sprouted into Baby Groot and more recently Teen Groot. This guy has died and come back more times than me, so I'd say that's pretty damn impressive. I've come back a total of 0 times. I think. I might have died once. I don't know.
Number 6, Ghost Rider. I think we all knew Ghost Rider would be on here. I doubt I need to really explain why he's scary, but in case you're totally lost, he's a biker with a flaming skull and demon chains who can consume souls and cause you to feel every bit of pain you've ever inflicted on someone. So yeah, probably not great to run into in a dark alley, especially if you're a jerk. In terms of immortality, it's stated in Ghost Rider's Heavens on Fire number 6 that only God can destroy a Ghost Rider, since he created them. True, the concept of God in the Marvel universe is a bit shaky, so this might not be meant to be taken literally, but I think it's fairly safe to call them immortal.
Number 5, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is still a woman that can be killed, but she has also been known as a demigod in the comics before, with one origin for her making her the daughter of Hippolyta, the Queen of Amazons, and Zeus, a god of Olympus. Really, the god of Olympus. More recently, during the events of Dark Knight's death metal, Diana was also raised up to become an omnipotent god amidst the stars, transcended into an otherworldly being and leaving our earthly plane behind, at least for a while. Diana would get a glimpse into a potential future, giving us the future state line, world, and event. Wonder Woman is known for being one of the fiercest and strongest fighters amongst the Amazons and in the world of DC besides.
Number 4, Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is definitely among the lesser known superheroes on this list. Some people may not even be aware that he's a good guy, since characters based on horror tropes tend to be pretty evil. But hey, as we learned with Frank, you mustn't judge a book by its cover, even if it is a pretty scary cover. Swamp Thing came into being when scientist Alec Holland had an incident with his biorestorative formula, causing his consciousness to enter a nearby swamp. This consciousness was then able to enter any plant life and use it as a body of sorts. Despite its horrid appearance, Swamp Thing would go on to find love and fight to protect humanity and nature. And yes, the Swamp Thing is immortal. As long as there is plant life somewhere in the universe, there's somewhere for Swamp Thing's consciousness to live. It's like he has like 8 gazillion Horcruxes, except he doesn't have to split his soul. Not too shabby.
And a 3, Green Lantern. Whenever a Green Lantern dies, another creature worthy of a ring gets chosen. There is no way to ever really eradicate any Lantern Corps from existence, since the rings will just, straight up go find a new host. There have also been plenty of Green Lanterns explored in the comics. Alan Scott, Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Jessica Cruz, John Diggle, plenty of men and women and aliens have gotten their hands on a green ring of power. But what if we were to wipe out every single Lantern at once? Like a bomb that is able to get them all since they were like at a con or something. Well, if one ring managed to survive, it would still find another host. host, so you'd have to destroy the rings as well. But unless you can literally do all of this at once, you'd be screwed. Because then they come for you because you just literally killed everyone.
Number 2. Spawn. The thing with this list is that most superheroes look, well, heroic, which generally means they don't look very scary. Not so with Spawn. Al Simmons was a cop who was murdered and sent to hell, only to make a deal with Malebolgia to become a Hellspawn, in exchange for seeing his wife one last time. And he's pretty darn cool. Sure, the 97 version looked a bit more like a WWE character than Demon Spawn, but if you want any proof that he's a scary dude, check out the trailer for the 2020 reboot, because my goodness, he terrifying. In terms of immortality, Spawn won't die of old age, and generally won't die of anything unless beheaded by a weapon of heaven. Or if you manage to kill him in the Dead Zone, an alley on Earth that counts as heaven's domain. So like, you should probably avoid that alley, or he'll get murdered by homeless men again. True story. Number 1, Deadpool. That's right, nerds, I don't care that I've talked about him a million times on this channel. If you give me an opportunity to slap Deadpool onto a list, I'm slapping him onto the list. For the 3 people who somehow don't know by now, Wade Wilson is a wisecracking mercenary who, through an experimental treatment, gained absurd regenerative abilities, to the point where he basically can't die. And why is he scary? Well, because his skin looks like this. Yeah, those are tumors. You're welcome. Plus, he isn't exactly the most stable person, so you kinda gotta watch your back even if he is your friend. As you may have guessed, he's my favorite hero of all time, and I am absurdly excited for him to join the MCU. Just please, for the love of God, bring back Hugh Jackman for one more movie. It needs to happen. Please.
Number 10, Yara FLOR. Yara FLOR is destined to become the new Wonder Woman. At least that is what Future State would have us believe. For now though, in the Prime Earth continuity, she is just coming into her own and being introduced to us as a hero, figuring out as well what that means for her as our Wonder Girl. Yara herself, like Wonder Woman before her, is also a demigod. In Future State we learned that while her mother was a mortal woman, her father was a Brazilian river god. Yara is an Amazonian in 2 ways, being from the Amazon and also being an Amazon of the Amazons. She is not from Themyscira like Diana, but instead from the Amazonian rainforest. We've seen the potential of Yara via her appearance in Future State, but currently she is not at her full power levels just yet, as she doesn't have the same amount of experience as her future self. Like Diana, she is also a skilled combatant and has enhanced strength and speed due to her heritage. Number 9, Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill isn't someone you'd initially think of when you think of Immortal, but he is down with the Immortals of Asgard, and so I think we can include him too. Also add in the fact that he is a cyborg, and you have a Beta Ray Bill that just won't quit, in most cases at least. In his Thor form, Beta Ray Bill becomes one of the toughest heroes around, not only known for his strength but also his durability. He is immune to disease and sickness and becomes pretty much immortal in that form. Being at the level of strength and capability when it comes to his power levels also makes him one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe, even though he might not be the one that you think of first. Still, I'm really happy I put Beta Ray Bill on this list because I feel like we never talk about him enough. Poor Bill. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, I have a lot more immortal, powerful heroes that I want to tell you about. So be sure to let us know you are loving it by giving this video a thumbs up. And shout out in the comments, be like part 2, part 2. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Number 8, Orion. Orion is one of the new gods and also the son of Darkseid. But just because his dad is one of the greatest villains of all time when it comes to the DC universe doesn't mean that he can't be a hero, which is ultimately what Orion is, preferring to fight on the side of good. Although this doesn't mean that he never has conflicts with other superheroes in the DC universe, because that does happen from time to time, with Orion arguing that his approach to heroism in certain cases is superior. Orion is an amazingly skilled fighter and leader who is known for his super strength, durability, and stamina. He also is immortal like his father, and because Darkseid has also been established as a constant in the DC universe, therefore invulnerable from ever being permanently defeated, we can discern that Orion likely has a similar thing going on, being descended from Darkseid as he is.
Next, number 7, the Immortal Hulk. Yeah, Hulk in general is pretty scary and pretty immortal, but Immortal Hulk is even scarier and even immortal. Not only does he have a healing factor keeping him young and strapping, but the whole point of the character is that this Hulk keeps bringing Banner back to life whenever he dies. So like, yeah, that's pretty darn immortal. Immortal Hulk, unlike other modern versions, only comes out in the evening if Bruce Banner is injured or dead, and apparently Immortal Hulk is the most powerful one yet. So not only does he look terrifying, but he's also even stronger than previous incarnations. Plus, as I said, he only comes out at night, and we all know nighttime is super spooky.
Number 6. Supergirl. Like her cousin Kal-El, Supergirl is often perceived as being basically immortal. In Future State, we saw an alternate future where Kara left Earth and lived well into the future. At the end of her Future State limited series, Kara Zor-El Superwoman, Supergirl did inevitably die, but we don't really know what from. It could have eventually been that she succumbed to old age after living well into the future and beyond, or it could be that she died protecting the Eternal Garden and community there that she created and had fostered. I would err on the side of the latter just because of how immortal Kara already seemed in that series. And that's not the only alternate reality where we've seen Kryptonians living well into the future, virtually untouched by age. There have been countless other realities, including that of DC 1 million, where we've seen heroes like Superman live well beyond normal years, becoming basically a sun-powered god. So if this is true for Clark based on his physiology, it must also be a possibility for Kara as well.
And at 5, Dr. Fate. First appearing in More Fun Comics number 55, his origins and alter ego were not shown until More Fun Comics number 67, where it was revealed that Kent Nelson and his father went on an expedition to the Valley of Ur. While exploring, Kent's father finds a temple. They explore it further and Kent opens the tomb of Nabu the Wise, reviving him from suspended animation and releasing a poisonous gas that kills his father. Taking pity on Kent, Nabu spends the next 20 years teaching him the ways of the sorcerer, giving him a mystical helmet, amulet, and cloak when he completes his training. Just like Ghost Rider, there have been many different people taking on the Dr. Fate title. Kent Nelson, Jared Stevens, Hector Hall, and Khaled Nassour, just to name a few. And gaining the powers of a freaking sorcerer is literally one of the coolest things that can ever happen. But the persona of Dr. Fate will always live on, always finding someone new to wear the helmet and use the title. So while the characters that wear the helmet may pass and change, the mantle of Dr. Fate will always have a home, which is really pure immortal. Wow, words.
Number 4. Cersei. Probably one of the most powerful Eternals around, and definitely one of the few with the greatest staying power in the comics is Cersei. So she's not only immortal as an Eternal, but also immortal in terms of her appearance in the comics. Cersei is introduced to us as one of the members of the Eternals who most loves humanity in the MCU film Eternals, and the same can be said for her in the comics. There she is also known as one of the most sociable Eternals, who also appreciates a really good party. In fact, when she was tricked into believing she was human, this was kind of what her whole world centered around. She became like all about parties. When it comes to her power levels, Cersei is often seen as specializing in the power of transmutation. In the comics, this has never been restricted to non-organic matter either, and also gives Cersei the power to heal. As an Eternal, she not only possesses this power, but also has complete control over every molecule of her being, making her quite durable and quite hard to kill. Even when Eternals are killed as well, they're resurrected, meaning they can never really die. Not only that, but Cersei can fly, teleport, and has super strength, and is telepathic and telekinetic. She's really got a lot of powers. Like most Eternals. That is something that I feel like we didn't really see in the movie, but in the comics, they're all pretty OP.
Number 3. Lobo. Lobo is a big, strong, loud, arrogant, violent blowhard from the planet Zarnia. He's also, full disclosure, one of my favorite characters, so I'm a wee bit biased here. That said, he definitely fits the criteria. Immortal? Check. He's such a wacko that he was straight up banished from the afterlife. Scary? Check. Freaky looks aside, his name translates to "He who devours your entrails and thoroughly enjoys it." And the main man lives up to that name, having exterminated almost everyone on his home planet, including children, with flying scorpions. Yeah. Lobo was created as a parody of all the 90s comic books that were hellbent on being super gritty and dark and intense, and he is definitely all of those things, with a tongue planted firmly in one's cheek.
Number 2. Jean Grey. Jean has died a lot, and I mean a lot. And yet, she always comes back. If that isn't immortality, I do not know what is. Even when she has been dead for years, she still returns. A big part of what makes her so indestructible is how much the Phoenix Force loves her and often sees her as its preferred host. I guess except for the whole Phoenix tournament thing, that really threw my whole understanding of the Jean-Phoenix connection for a loop. As a superhero, Jean is one of the most powerful around, but often chooses to show restraint when it comes to her abilities unless she is really needed to set things right. She's just kinda too OP as well. She is an Omega level telepath and an extremely powerful telekinetic. Number 1. Superman. One of the most immortal of the immortals out there, and one of the most powerful, is Superman, who has been established as immortal as long as he's under a yellow sun. Granted, his immortality is a little bit conditional, but when it comes to being a powerhouse Superman is undisputedly one of the best and most established in comics today. I mean, they kinda had to nail down his powers and give him weaknesses to make his struggles more grounded. That's how unstoppable he initially was. Back when his superpowers were basically whatever he needed them to be in order to save the day and solve problems. Superman has also died before, but has pretty much always come back, and following the death of Superman, we also learned that due to Kryptonian technology, even this publicized and sensationalized death would most definitely not be a permanent thing. A very powerful factor that Superman also possesses when it comes to his immortality is how popular he is, evidently. So it'd be really hard to kill Superman because we'd all be like, no! No one would accept it. We'd all be like just tearing our hair out and beating our chest, be like, unacceptable.